I find LinkedIn is, for business-wise, Twitter has been the best for me for business.
What do you define as professional?
Oh, professional, so, workforce, older than college.
Okay, so you don't look at it in terms of the traditional professions per se. It's just anybody.
Yeah.
If you have a job.
If you have a job, yeah, professional.
Facebook is an online yearbook. That's the book.
Yeah. So, well, somebody said like, okay, LinkedIn is my Rolodex, Facebook is my scrapbook, text, and Twitter is my soapbox to the world. So going back, I'm looking at the younger kids in high school now. You know, are they really doing something so different? They're having fan clubs for their favorite bands on MySpace. They're decorating, instead of decorating the rooms with posters, they're decorating the online stuff. They're signing yearbooks. You've got pen pals, popularity contests. You can say you're my BFF as opposed to just a friend, and they're keeping diaries. So it isn't really that, and that's part of what some of Facebook's success is. We're taking stuff that people always did, and they're making it more efficient and doing it a little differently. They have a very inclusive versus exclusive mindset, and this is, I think, the biggest divide for me between when I work with boomers and I work with Gen Y, and depending if you're an older Xer or a younger Xer, you go this way on the privacy, on the inclusive versus exclusive. I think a great example of this is Wikipedia, and Wikinomics is a really good book, even though it's a few years out of date, but just talking about how the shared, I mean, who thought Wikipedia could work? That you could actually trust the information that's on the web and people would volunteer their time to self-check it. But how many times a day do I want to find out, you know, something about whether it's A-Rod or something? I go to Wikipedia to make sure I get the right information, right? You go to so you start to use it. So I think it's showing that people can collaborate and be inclusive. Open source technology, as a former attorney, it freaks me out. Yet we developed some software that, you know, there's no market for it. Let's just open source it, guys. You know, and it was, you know, for me, I'm like, well, what if someone does something and it crashes their computer? Are they going to come after me? I mean, it's just really a different mindset, and yet we haven't had the big cases yet about the open source technology. There will eventually, I'm sure, be one.
When you say open source, what type of programming are you talking about?
It means that we created some software called Faces in a Box to do an online social network. We created it by accident because we couldn't find what we needed for Downtown Women's Club. And then we realized there's no market for it, but let's just put it out there so if somebody else wants to, like a nonprofit, wants to take that software and they have a tech guy that could customize it to what they want, they can have it for free. That's open office. That's all on this idea of this absolute sharing. So those of us who grew up, especially those of us, the nice part is the inclusive and sexual orientation gender roles, they really are diminished because you don't always know who you're dealing with. And I think that's why, I will say they're more, a little more gender blind and racial blind. You know, it doesn't come up as much of an issue. Well, because you don't know if you're on a board, if I'm talking to somebody and they're giving on a message board and they're giving me the right answers that I need to fix my computer, I don't care if they're in China. I don't care if they're here. Social networks are one bit of the world. But then again, how do we know they're posting their real photo or I mean, so you have some issues with that. The class factor technology is an equalizer. If you can start, a lot of these small companies are starting, you know, with a laptop, a couple guys, you know, it's a lot easier to do it. There's a great, another good book I read, Guy Kawasaki's Reality Check, a Irreverent Guide to Marketing. He has this one section where he outlines how he started alltop.com, which is all the top blogs, and he gives you the price list of how much it cost him to start this company. And it was like $40,000. He tells you like how we got the logo for $300. I was like, I went to the same place. You know, I mean, it was shop and say, you know, so it's like a very interesting way of looking at things. The less interest in privacy. This I'm going to blame on reality TV. I mean, there's the fact that that younger people will put their whole lives out there, and the transparency. There's some good in it, and there's some bad in it. And I was talking earlier about how I was on a radio show and was asked about this a couple years ago, the tapping the phones, and why wasn't Gen Y outraged that, you know, the administration might have been tapping phones? And the reaction from most of the Gen Yers was like, didn't they already do that? Aren't they already tapping my phone? You know, I didn't know I could be outraged about it because I just thought that was natural. They've also been the generation that was nanny cammed, you know, so it's like they've been out there, and so they have less sense of privacy. I think this is an issue. I think if you are younger, you want to go use your privacy settings on Facebook. When I talk to the MBA students and the college students, first thing, if I'm looking to hire you, I'm going to be on Facebook, and if you're not smart enough to use your privacy settings, and I would say hide your friends because you are who you associate with, and not all of our friends have the best judgment, even those of us in our 40s. And they put some pictures up there that you wouldn't want your professional friends to see. Well, I think the younger generations would say, it is what I am what I am, and you should hire me for what I am. And I don't know what the fallout's going to be, but you have a command and control style who thinks that you should all fall in line and be like this, and we have a whole 76 million that don't think that way. There is going to be a clash. Yeah, but there are privacy settings so that like only my close friends can see photos of my children, and that I really cringed on putting that up there until I really tested it out. Well, I think it depends on this industry norm. My view is if they didn't use the privacy settings, then I'm like, they're not smart enough to work for me, you know, or they're, I mean, if there's privacy settings and you don't use them, I mean, everybody knows that you can have a professional persona and an off-site one. I think most people are okay. I mean, the politics question does come up because when I made a choice on Facebook, I was like, wow, I try to be bipartisan. I'm completely bipartisan on our blogs and the stuff I write for other periodicals. But I put my politics on Facebook and Twitter. I was pretty open about them. And it was a choice, but then I wasn't looking for a job. And I wonder, had I been looking for a job, and I think most people in Boston know where I stand. You know, when you write an op-ed in the Boston Globe, they kind of know. So, you know, so I wasn't going to hide it, you know, but it's going to be there for 10 years. And if I need a job from someone who doesn't agree with my politics in 10 years, I don't know how that's going to play out. So let's talk a little bit about Gen Y in the office. This is some of the stuff that's coming. Some of the really neat things are coming with these Uber networks. That was the word the guy from Microsoft came up with, is they're walking in with everybody they know from college and stuff like that. So some, depending on the job, some people think that's a really big benefit. We had this discussion last night. Do you want to hire? This woman was hiring from Ameriprise. They are hiring in this environment. And she said, well, to tell you the truth, even if that person doesn't know all 500 people they're linked to on LinkedIn, I want the person with 500 people more than I want the person with 5. So that is one view of looking, depending on the job. If you're going to a sales job, you better have that big Uber network. So that is something that kids are bringing with them. Collaboration versus delegation. I'd like to give you an example of what happens in a meeting when you have all the different generations represented. And so the vice president, he's already had the side meetings on the side. This is what we were taught. You know, the side meetings already happen before you even walk into that meeting. You sit down, you're going to delegate to everybody out there. Well, the Gen Y sitting there going, well, why'd you call a meeting if you're just going to tell me what I'm supposed to do? I thought I was here to offer an opinion. That's the, got an amen from the back. There you go, yes. I mean, you're sitting there, I'm supposed to participate. But so that's why they don't understand the command and control management style. And that is how corporate America has been built, as a command and control. You know, you've been there enough time, you get up the ladder. It doesn't matter if Joe Schmo down here invented something, he can't get it approved unless it goes up the ladder. And so that, the new generation, because they're inventing things all the time. I mean, Facebook was invented by somebody. I mean, you know, so it's definitely a different attitude. And to look back on the social networks, the blogging, different things. So take that same meeting. Let's say a question does arise. Well, wait, it's an advertisement. Wait, can we use this tagline? That would be a really good tagline. Is it out there? So what happens? The baby boomer is going to go back to his desk and call his buddies at the other firm and say, hey, does anyone remember if anybody used that tagline before? The Gen Xer is going to go back to their desk and Google. The Gen Y is going to Twitter all his friends and get the answer back before they even leave the meeting. That the tagline has been used, and here's links to who has used it. So is it really a bad thing or a good thing? But I mean, and I think that's why we need to get on these trends if we're already not there, because they're not going away. Anything that comes along that makes what we do easier has some staying power. An iPod is a very once-in-a-lifetime change. A computer is a once-in-a-lifetime. I mean, something that changes how we do things or changes or adds something new to our lives is very unique, like a TV or something like that. But something that can improve the process will probably stick around. Social networks, blogging, and open software are not fads. Just want to talk about social networks. Companies are starting to use them internally. So being familiar with what they are externally, then when they use it internally, it's not as so different. Blogging, there was a big article that got a lot of flack a few months ago about how blogging is so 2004, it's so dead. And I wrote a rebuttal to that, and my point was like blogging to get a book deal might be dead. Blogging to tell me every boring detail about your day might be dead. But blogging as a corporate tool is just beginning to be adopted and understood as the best way. So if you're going to go look for, if you're looking for a job at a corporation, I would look for a corporation that understands these trends, that is on them, because they were the ones that will be around. So blogging is an incredibly useful tool for corporate America. What